to 2 women. And Lisa was my second wife. We were married for 3-4 years. Yeah. We had our own problems. We had marital problems. We had misunderstandings. And Lisa wanted me to leave my first wife and get married to her one afternoon. I came back from work and my Lisa was nowhere to be found. I searched, I looked, I asked of her from all the people I knew, from her family, from friends, from loved ones, and she was nowhere to be found. My Lisa was gone. And for 3 solid years, my Lisa, my wife, was nowhere to be found. One afternoon, I was in the house when a friend called me. He said, "Bro, do you know your little angel is getting married?" Yeah, I called her my little angel. My little angel was getting married to another man. Wow. My wife, my Lisa, was getting married to another man. Said a man from the States. So I hurriedly went to the location to where they were having the ceremony, and lo and behold, that was my Lisa, my wife, my little angel, already married to another man, and they were having their wedding photo shoot. Wow. I was too late. There was nothing I could do. I thought I'd lost my wife forever, but a friend told me I could take the matter to court because I'm still married to her. She's still my wife. I want an advice if I can take them to court and get my wife back, because I love my wife.
A person who is lawfully married could still get into trouble with the law if he or she conducts him or herself in a manner that offends the institution of marriage or the ceremony. Today on Law Express, we discuss bigamy and similar offenses, and with me to discuss the topic as usual are 2 private legal practitioners. We have Nana Fredua Ajimandanso and Amina Ali Isaka. Ladies and gentlemen of the bar, you're welcome to Law Express.
Thank you.
Before we proceed on the topic today, we'll go for a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we delve in. Stay tuned and don't move a muscle. Bigamy. One will start wondering, what is bigamy?
You know, in simple terms, where someone is legally married and intends to contract another marriage, in this case, another monogamous marriage.
There are 2 people involved in bigamy, and it works both ways. There's the already married person, and then the person who is marrying the already married person, knowing that that person is married.
Yes.
So if you are aware that that person is married and you decide to enter into a new marriage with that person, then you'll be guilty of bigamy as well, and you serve the same sentence as that person is going to serve. If you are found guilty, you can spend up to 3 years in prison, or you'll be fined, or you can get both.
Both, yes.
Yes.
So today we're looking at bigamy and other similar offenses. And by that we're looking at impersonation, fictitious marriages, false declarations, all, things that surround marriage. Bigamy. One will start wondering, what is bigamy?
Noella, bigamy is an offense, under our criminal statutes. And it is, in simple terms, where someone is legally married and intends to contract another marriage, in this case, another monogamous marriage. Certainly, then the issue of bigamy comes to play. There are, various dynamics that go in there. where there are different forms of marriages.
Okay.
Some people may be married under the Cap 127, which is, basically monogamous in nature.
Okay.
In this case, we are talking about marriage under the ordinance. And then we have the Mohammedan's marriage.
Yeah.
And then we have customary marriage. Now, the thing is that most of the times, issues of bigamy crop up where one of the spouses thinks that, well, I can go ahead and contract another marriage, even though there might be another, marriage subsisting.
So what you're trying to say is there are two ways. You already have a monogamous marriage.
Yes.
And then you seek to marry another person in whatever form. Or you married in any other form and you're seeking to have a monogamous marriage.
Certainly.
So that is your simple, definition of bigamy.
Of bigamy.
And
Yes.
one thing I'd like to add is that bigamy only comes into play when monogamy is in play.
Yes.
So if there's no monogamous marriage, then there'll be no mention of bigamy as an offense.
So you married under Islamic law.
Yes.
You can marry for as long as Islam permits you to
Yes.
marry any number you want, about 4
Yes.
in the maximum. Or you are married under the customary law. You can marry as many as you can
want.
take care of.
Yes.
Yes.
But then once you decide to now contract a monogamous marriage along the line, then the issue of bigamy arises.
becomes
Certainly.
So it's not simply having multiple wives, but then the whole idea of a monogamous marriage coming into play at some point is what makes it bigamy.
That is what makes it bigamy. Now, I think that probably it's good for us to give a backdrop to this so that, our viewers can understand, how these things come to play. Usually, issues of bigamy come up when you have issues of divorce. Sometimes people do not complete their divorce proceedings or do not get properly divorced and go ahead to contract
A new marriage.
a new marriage, a monogamous one at that. If you've not properly completed your divorce proceedings, you've not been issued with
A decree.
and a divorce certificate for that matter. Certainly, you're
still married.
You're still married.
Yeah.
But in Ghana, you find a lot of people will go ahead to contract another
And
marriage.
if I may add this, the main reason why the Ghanaians might think the marriage has been dissolved, even though they don't have the decree, is because maybe the prior customary marriage
Yes.
has already been dissolved in the house. So they think, okay, then we are already not married. So
It's
the
so-
marriage does not exist. We don't have to wait for the decree
That's true.
to contract a new marriage.
But it's worth mentioning that even upon the contracting or after you have gone through customary marriage, when you elect to go and then regularize it or register it, and then make it a monogamous marriage,
Yes.
at that point it cancels out the customary marriage.
Exactly.
Certainly.
Now what you
certainly.
now have is the one, at the registry.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that is your marriage. So that returning the drinks is just to satisfy your own cultural society and maybe the families. But then the marriage is still there until the divorce decree is
Yes.
issued.
It's issued.
By the court.
But, these are the backdrops to how issues of bigamy come up. In recent times, there's also been the issue of people who apply for visas. They are still married and then go ahead to contract, a second marriage so that they can go, travel elsewhere to see greener pastures. Sometimes you don't sever those ties. You go out there to see greener pastures, and it might come back to haunt you.
But
So
I
these-
mean, don't you realize that many people, mostly women,
Yes.
tend to fight?
Yes.
You're sitting somewhere, you had your marriage under the ordinance, and then you hear that your husband is getting married somewhere,
Yes.
and then they just go there and start fighting.
Yes.
Whereas, we have to have these kind of discussions for people to know that this is a criminal offense.
Exactly. And they could have the men put
Arrested
in jail. Yes.
and imprisoned
Yes.
for the offense
For the
of
offense
bigamy.
of bigamy, yes. Yes.
In fact, the law has actually laid down the punishment for it.
Yes.
Very clear. If you commit this offense, it's a misdemeanor.
Yes.
And our criminal laws have laid down the punishment for that.
Yes.
So if you are caught culpable of bigamy, you can actually serve a term of imprisonment for up to 3 years.
Yeah.
or, be fined,
Or
or
both.
both actually. There have been incidents like that in recent
I
times.
think you would like to talk about the defense for bigamy. I mean,
Yes.
if
The only instance
Yeah.
where somebody could prove that they were not guilty of bigamy, even though they were found to be in two marriages, monogamous, existing at the same time, could be when the spouse, initial spouse, the first marriage, has not been heard of for a continuous period of 7 years.
Yeah.
And in that time, that spouse should have been presumed dead. You see, so even if you hear from that spouse, let's say in the 9th month of the 6th year, you cannot
Yeah.
go on and contract.
You have to wait
another
for the time,
marriage.
the
You have
7th year to elapse.
You have to wait for the 7th year to elapse.
Yeah.
And in that time, you should have presumed your spouse to be dead before you could go ahead and then contract.
so, what about where the person
marriage.
pretends that he's alive? You've seen him on Facebook. He's just not responding to your messages.
Yes. Then you have to divorce him properly.
You can go maybe for desertion, use
Yes,
desertion
exactly.
as a reason for
Divorce
divorce.
him,
But then
exactly.
you cannot presume that he's dead,
He's dead.
and then declare him dead and then
Yes.
go ahead
and
to
then go ahead
buy.
and marry somebody else.
And contract. And in any case, we should be mindful of the fact that even though it is, a defense, it is one that, you would have to prove strictly that,
Yes. Yes.
and by, a lot of means show, in court that indeed I had no knowledge that he was alive in
Yes.
that period.
And in these current times, it'd be very difficult
Difficult
to
to do
prove
that.
Yeah.
to prove this because now we have phones, we have Facebook, we have WhatsApp. It's like it's a global village, so there's no way you can presume someone dead unless the person is indeed truly dead.
Well, let's look at this. So, you're married, monogamously, and then you hear that your partner is getting married somewhere. What should you do? That will be the first question.
Well, we must not lose sight of the fact that, marriage in itself is a social contract. And
Yes.
it's also, like I indicated earlier, usually offenses like bigamy are reported when the other person feels constrained, And even though it's a criminal offense, most often than not, the other party needs to take the step by informing the police about it, that this is the situation.
You report to the
You
police.
report to the police
and
because
it's their
it's
duty to prosecute.
prosecute
Like with every other criminal
criminal offense, But we can't lose sight of the fact that, marriage as it is has certain nuances that go beyond, the ordinary understanding of, contracts. They are matters of the heart. We can't run away from that.
But I want to believe that whether or not you're aggrieved, I mean, it's a crime.
Yes.
That is it. That is it. And I think people who would want to engage in this sort of crime need to be aware of the consequences of it because it's going on. A lot
Absolutely.
of
Very
people are doing
rampant.
it.
Yeah.
And, I have to be honest that it's actually a lot of men who are doing that.
Yes.
But
where-
that doesn't mean women
Don't
don't
do
do
it.
it either, But, it's going on. And once you engage in bigamy and you are found guilty of it, there is that punishment.
I mean, must it always be the other party reporting?
No, anybody who is aware of the crime can report.
So once
It
you
needs
know
not
that this
be-
person is married,
Yes,
and
and
you
know-
see him
Certainly.
getting married somewhere
Somebody
else, you can just go to the
Yes,
nearest
exactly.
police
Police
station
station
Have him arrested.
and make that report.
Report.
It's important for us to make this,
very
clear.
clear. Yeah.
So it's not a thing of being a busybody. You are reporting a crime.
A
Yes,
crime.
and it doesn't make it any less of a crime just because the other wife or the previous spouse is consenting to the second marriage.
Yes.
It doesn't make any
It's
less
a
of
crime
a crime
against society, and that
Yes.
is a criminal
That's
thing.
why
yeah.
yes, it has to be dealt with.
Let's move on to other similar offences. Fictitious marriages.
That's an interesting one, where someone, goes to marry another person, wherever it may be, knowing that, the marriage that he's contracting itself is void
For some reason.
for some reason, and then you make the other person believe that it's a valid marriage, it's a crime.
So we are looking at a situation where perhaps you know the priest has not been licensed, the venue has not been
licensed.
You are aware, but you know the other partner is not aware. And then you're quiet about it.
You're quiet about it. And, you know, one scenario that comes to mind quickly is, you know, where people want to get married to foreigners because they have money, they want to, you know, get married to them.
Gold diggers.
Gold diggers, you know. So he or she doesn't care much about where they are having the ceremony or who is doing so, knowing very well that, well, this guy is no priest. He's not been licensed.
I've something that's very sad, where a man approaches a woman. He wanted to have sexual relations with her, and she said, I'm a Muslim woman, and I can do that. So he decides to put together people that were not his kinsmen.
Exactly.
Contracted a marriage with a woman just to have access to her. And after that, vanished into thin air.
So clearly...
Exactly. And that's what we also have to bear in mind. It's not just the fact that the priest is not licensed or the place of ceremony is not licensed.
Yes.
We have two other kinds of marriages. So customary marriage, he can bring people to pretend to be his family members who are not.
Yeah, like
they
in
are
this
like
instance.
exactly. And then you bring them to come and contract a customary marriage with a woman.
Yeah.
And that's a fictitious marriage because it's clearly not the two families meeting to consent to have their daughters or their sons marry.
We've had situations where you know, family members do not consent to a person, you know, one of the people getting married, you know, in that marriage, and then what they do is they get people to now come and play along as their fathers, their mothers, and it's catching on. You know, it's catching on, and people need to know about some of these things. You know, especially where you are aware that what you're doing will certainly make it
How
void.
about this? You meet a beautiful lady in Ghana and you tell her that I have a brother in the US who would like to marry you. Then you go ahead to have a marriage, whereas the other person is maybe non-existent or hasn't consented to the marriage. So they have that photo marriage where there's a huge, you know, picture and all of that. And you know this marriage is not valid. The other party hasn't consented. He doesn't even, maybe he's even non-existent. This could also fall, you know. But in this case, the party, the other party is the innocent party. So who are we holding for this fictitious marriage?
Certainly
is it a middleman?
You know, it's the person who goes through the marriage ceremony himself. You know, if you go ahead to contract such a marriage, when you know deep within you that, you know, this is the situation, the person that, you know, I am representing, I'm standing in for. You know, it happens. He doesn't even exist. In this case, you are contracting the marriage yourself, you know, and you knew that it makes it void.
And you still let the other innocent person on.
So,
you know, when we're discussing bigamy, we actually left out the liability of the other person who is getting married to this already married person. You don't get off free.
No.
You are also guilty. And that's also a criminal offense and misdemeanor as well.
And that's one thing the viewers should really get home. There are two people involved in bigamy, and it works both ways. There's the already married person, and then the person who is marrying the already married person, knowing that that person is married. So if you are aware that that person is married and you decide to enter into a new marriage with that person, then you'll be guilty of bigamy as well, and you serve the same sentence as that person is going to serve.
Or even more.
You know, it's
depending on your level of involvement.
I mean, in recent times, it's become a common phenomenon where you have people, you know, who think that, well, I don't care if he's married or she's married. I mean, we are in love. I love him, and we are going ahead to get married. You know, it's happening. It's happening. And they should be aware of all these consequences that once you contract such a marriage or you purport to do so, you know, once you go ahead with those, you know, with contracting that marriage, you would find yourself in the arms of the law.
It's very interesting how fictitious marriages, you know, spill over into personation in marriage. Where you are marrying under a false name, false identity and all of that. It's once you falsify the information, You know, whereas it's not a fictitious marriage, you still are being dishonest.
Yes.
And that's, you know, also it's a crime. It's a misdemeanor.
Yeah. So, and it carries the same sentence as bigamy, which is
Yes.
up to 3 years.
Yes.
If you are found guilty, you can spend up to 3 years in prison, or you'll be fined, or you can get both.
Both, yes.
Yes.
For me, I think false name or false description is one of the things that we can easily find around, where, you know, a lot of people, especially when they want to travel, they use all these, you know, false names to do documentation and to contract marriages, you know, just so they can travel
Absolutely.
abroad.
We'll go for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll look at unlawfully performing marriage ceremonies, making false declarations, and many more.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be right back after this break.
Still to come on Law Express.
My all-time favorite, false impediment to marriage. False impediment. You know that thing where you're in church and then at some point, any impediment, no impediment.
But I think in this situation, clearly the law is looking at people who, you know, make
Things difficult.
for
Stand in the way of
they
the
stand in
marriage.
the way of the marriage, you know, by making it look as though their consent is
Without it,
required
By law.
by law before the marriage can be contracted.
Bigamy, my layman's knowledge, because I'm not a lawyer, is when somebody who is married under ordinance goes to marry another person, then it becomes bigamy. Because if he's married under the law, it's supposed to be one man, one woman. So if he marries a second woman, then that's breaking the law.
Bigamy is when a person who is legally married to someone intends, goes on to marry another man or another woman, in the vice versa, of which both individuals are not legally divorced.
If I find out my wife is getting to married to another man, what I will do is I will first consult my lawyer, get advice from the lawyer before maybe I will talk to her.
The woman that I'm legally married to is going to get married to another man. I'll just divorce her, send her to the parents, sit amicably, agree on a consensual agreement in respect of the divorce, and then I move on with my life.
Me too, me yes, and then I'm here.
If I should find out that my husband, whom I've gotten married to, or whom I'm married to, is getting married to another woman, what I'll just wait for him to come back, then I'll consult my lawyer, then we just have our divorce.
Yeah, to be a serious issue. If the woman I'm married to, my wife, is also getting married, I hear she's getting married to another person, definitely it's going to lead to divorce. Definitely, I'm not going to marry her again, and especially if there's children involved, then we'll look at how we can part our separate ways and then get my children back, because such a woman is not worth living with. If my wife is also getting married to another person, then basically means she doesn't love me.
Oh, I don't really know what to do. The thing is, the fact that he's going to get married to someone means there was a problem in our marriage. So we have to sit down first and talk things out. If it doesn't work out, meaning he's made up his mind, he wants to go. You know, I can't force him to stay with me forever and ever if he insists leaving. Because if I insist him staying, meaning I'm going to be doomed.
I don't think I'll do anything much. I think the two families have to sit down to brush things over, to coerce her or to persuade her to understand. If not, I just have to walk out. She'll go her way and I also go my way.
Well, I'm sure there's no woman who will be excited about sharing her man. If I find out that my husband is getting married to another woman, well, there are two things. If I'm married to him customary, then I know that I have to prepare myself to share him, because then under the customary law, he has a right to marry more than one wife, or he can't marry more than one wife traditionally. However, if I'm married to him under ordinance, then of course I'll sue him for bigamy, because he can't marry more than one woman if it's under ordinance. I guess that's the legal understanding for me.
I'll be so furious, I'll be so angry, and I would investigate well and then follow a lawsuit. So I'm going to take it to court. That's what I'm going to do. If I realize the woman is still insisting to marry somebody else, fine. I'll just accept a divorce.
To be frank with you, I wouldn't know what to do. I think I would just leave him and look for another man to marry me. The fact that he will leave me to marry somebody else means he didn't love me in the first place.
First of all, because it's a criminal offense, I will sue you in court and let the court know what you did and let the court know about the way you betrayed me.
For love, you can't force someone to be in love with you. I hope you understand. So the best thing is for you to go. Make sure that everything is intact. And if it's really true from the lady that she wants to marry the guy who is getting married to, all you need to do is just to live her life for her. Later, when in due time, when she finds out that what she did was wrong, she's probably going to get back to you. And I think that there's no rush in marriage.
I won't take any action. Like I'll be shocked. You know, this is serious. I'll just have to keep quiet. That is her decision. She has already taken it. So I have nothing to do.
I would actually ask the husband, like my husband really well, if it was really true, he's getting married to another woman. And then if he says yes, I'll go to his parents and then make it clear to them that the marriage can come on. If only they will agree, fine. But if they wouldn't, I'll ask for a divorce.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think it will be a criminal action because she's legally married. We are legally married, and then I think according to the PNDC law inside or something, there's a clause also that will find her guilty. So definitely, I believe it's a criminal thing, and I'm going to let my lawyers get involved to see how I'm going to sue her for some damages and also other things.
Well, I never knew if someone does that is a criminal offense because it's a decision on his own. It's an individual decision.
If we've had our marriage blessed in church and registered it under the laws of Ghana, then definitely that one will have to be a matter that my lawyers will have to deal with his lawyers with in courts.
When, let's say, your wife is caught in an act doing something wrong or of that sort, I mean, the best thing for you to do is to walk out.
Yeah, I know it's a criminal offense, and then I will sue him for that.
I know bigamy is a criminal offense because for ladies, it's even stated in the Bible, the lady is entitled to one man.
Yeah, it's a criminal action if only he didn't tell me anything. And I can report him if he doesn't want to go on with me.
Okay, so Noella, whoever witnesses as a marriage officer or conducts any marriage, knowing that he's not qualified to do so, commits a crime, and it's a misdemeanor which attracts up to 3 years. If you are found guilty, 3 years in jail or a fine or both. Okay. And I'm thinking most of the time, it happens when it comes to these mushroom churches who perform marriage ceremonies and they are not licensed to do so because they are not licensed under Cap 127 to perform marriage under the ordinance. And maybe the priest or the pastor in charge is also not licensed to perform these kind of ceremonies. So, but they tell their congregation that they are marrying them under what's it called, monogamous marriages, but it's still not under Cap 127. Some of them even go to the extent of giving them certificates of marriage, according to the church, that they are married under the church. But it's nothing more than a church blessing.
I think it's to deter people from leading others on to invest so much into a marriage. Because I mean, you pretend that you're qualified, so you take them through counseling and all this trouble that you have to go through to be prepared. Then you invest, you invite people as witnesses, they come, you have a fully blown up ceremony, only to realize one morning that it's void. There's nothing.
It's nothing there.
I'm sure it's just to hold them liable. So
exactly.
So in that case, it means if you were not married under the customary law before going to church, then there's no marriage at all. That's very bad.
Marriage. But what about making false declarations for marriage and all, especially with documents? You're filling a license form, you're filling something, and then you're supposed to take a visa form, something,
these are all crimes under our law. Where you falsify declarations for marriages. You know as a fact that whatever you are putting in there is false. These are matters that have to do with the certificates, the license, when you put matters in there, knowing very well that the things I'm writing there are false. You know,
and
it's an offense.
I think this more pertains more to the instances where you are filling out that form or giving that data for the purposes of marriage.
Marriage.
Yes, exactly.
So you are filling out the form to process yourself through the registry.
Yes.
And then you maybe falsify your date of birth, falsify your hometown or something else.
Yes, so I'm seeing the instance where those who are guilty of fictitious marriages also be guilty of false declaration.
Because it's, you know, close to that.
Yeah, or maybe somebody who's guilty of personation.
Yes,
certainly. Certainly. I mean, the two are so linked. And but people need to be aware of this, you know, because most of the times people give false information about who they are, you know. The name that is written on their marriage certificate is different from what's on their birth certificate.
And it's different from the voter ID card.
And Fred, I don't think we even need to go far to names.
Yes.
Professions.
Yes.
Somebody might have told his wife or whoever is supposed
He's a doctor.
Yeah. that maybe he's a bank manager. Maybe he's a banker, but maybe he's just a teller there.
Yes.
Yeah. A teller is not a banker. Yeah. So we don't need to go too fast. Certain small things like these also fall for false declarations because it's not the truth.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and you're doing it with intent towards deceive.
My all-time favorite, false impediment to marriage. False impediment. You know that thing where you're in church and then at some point, any impediment, no impediment.
But I think in this situation, clearly the law is looking at people who, you know, make
things difficult
for
stand in the way of
stand in the way of the marriage, you know, by making it look as though their consent is required by law before the marriage can be contracted. You know, sometimes you have aunties and uncles
and
abusiapenis who stand in the way of the marriage, you know, and these are all, you know, captured under our Criminal Offences Act.
It's worth mentioning that it's not a thing of saying that if somebody who rightfully has to give consent does not give consent.
No.
But where you pretend that somebody
certainly
has to, where you pretend that you have to give consent and your consent is not needed.
It's not a legal requirement.
Try to stand in the way. And that is also a criminal offense.
Yes.
You could actually be reported to the police. And then you could be prosecuted, and then you could go to jail as well. No, we have to sound it over and over. We can't say it enough.
No.
Or pay a fine, you know. It's still
both.
Yes, it's still a conviction.
Yes.
It's still a conviction.
And it still go on your record as a criminal.
Okay.
So people need to be mindful of these offenses that pertain to, you know, marriages in Ghana. And some of them that even apply when you contract marriages outside
Ghana.
You know, our shores. You know clearly, you're an uncle, your consent is not really needed for the person to contract a marriage.
In law. Maybe in customary law, that's fine. But, you know, but with the marriage under the ordinance, if you're not needed and you try to stand in the way.
You stand in the way and make them believe, for that matter, that your
consent is like the main thing.
Without it, nothing happens.
Yes. Still on this thing of false pretense of impediment to marriage, you know, a part of the law says that if there is, the person pretends that there's a legal impediment to the performance of such a marriage. So aside the person who pretends that his consent is needed, there are other people who will come there and tell you that you cannot proceed because there's some legal thing that you haven't performed, which will be false. That also would amount to a false pretense of an impediment to the marriage. So perhaps maybe in church, those who stand up could fall in here.
Obviously, if there isn't any impediment.
And even if there is an impediment, let's say the man is already married.
It's too late.
It's not a legal
and that
impediment.
Is not even the place
because you were supposed to do that when the bans were published, and you didn't do that. So it's not a legal impediment here. So you could also be guilty of a misdemeanor here, false pretense of impediment.
Very well. We'll go for another quick commercial break, and when we come back, we would discuss the scenario before us at the beginning. The gentleman who came to us with his whole issue, you know. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Still to come on Law Express.
One of the reasons why issues of bigamy, you know, have not gained much
currency.
Is because people have sentimental attachment when it comes to issues of marriage.
I'm married to 2 women, and Lisa was my second wife. We were married for 3-4 years. Yeah. We had our own problems. We had marital problems. We had misunderstandings. And Lisa wanted me to leave my first wife and get married to her. One afternoon I came back from work and my Lisa was nowhere to be found. I searched, I looked, I asked of her from all the people I knew, from her family, from friends, from loved ones, and she was nowhere to be found. My Lisa was gone. And for 3 solid years, my Lisa, my wife, was nowhere to be found. One afternoon, I was in the house when a friend called me. He said, "Bro, do you know your little angel is getting married?" Yeah, I called her my little angel. My little angel was getting married to another man. Wow. My wife, my Lisa, was getting married to another man. She had a man from the States. So I hurriedly went to the location to where they were having the ceremony, and lo and behold, that was my Lisa, my wife, my little angel, already married to another man, and they were having their wedding photo shoot. Wow. I was too late. There was nothing I could do. I thought I'd lost my wife forever, but a friend told me I could take the matter to court because I'm still married to her. She's still my wife. I want an advice if I can take them to court and get my wife back, because I love my wife.
So with this situation, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, maybe I should recap it a bit or summarize it a bit. So the man married 2 women under customary law, which is valid and allowed. Then he's been having issues with the younger wife or the second wife. So she moves out. She's been away from him for some 3 years. They haven't lived together, but the marriage is still subsisting because they haven't dissolved it. Then he wakes up and hears that the lady is getting married at the courts. He gets there, but he's restrained because there's security and all of that. The lady's apparently getting married to a very rich blogger, international,
good for her,
international businessman. Now he's worried and he's come to us because he still knows that he's married to the woman and he still loves his second wife. I mean, this is a simple thing.
Simple. To us lawyers.
To us lawyers, I guess.
But not to him.
I think, like we indicated earlier, one thing is if there is a subsisting marriage, properly contracted subsisting marriage, if, one of the spouses takes the step of contracting or goes ahead to contract another, monogamous marriage, then certainly, issues of bigamy come to play.
So maybe we should break it down, Amina.
Yes. Bigamy, as you already said, it comes in when there's a monogamous marriage.
Yes.
So she's now still married under customary law to our client right now. She's still married to him. And she's now marrying the bogger.
Yes.
Clearly, there's nothing he can do at this point in time to stop the marriage.
Yes, it's already happened.
Exactly. The only thing he can do is to go to court and have the marriage voided, because it's a voidable marriage because the wife is already married to him.
Yes.
Yes. And he could also have them, the 2 of them, indicted for bigamy.
So he could report first to the police.
Exactly.
And then after which he can now go to court.
Yes, and have them arrested. But looking at, you said he still loves his wife.
That's what he says. He doesn't want the marriage dissolved. Okay, he wants his woman back. But you can't force somebody to marry another
if he wants his woman
back.
Are you sure he would report them for bigamy then?
He has to. I mean, we are giving legal advice, so we'll give him his options, and then
obviously.
So he has the option one of going to the police to report bigamy, where the two of them could be brought in and prosecuted, and if convicted, they could go to jail or fined or both. Then he has a second option also of going to court to declare whatever marriage void. In that case, wouldn't it be a simple thing of the woman now,
divorcing him properly?
Yeah, divorcing him properly. And then going ahead.
Obviously,
because you can't force someone to marry you. If she's not interested anymore, she doesn't love him anymore, there's no way she can be in a marriage with him. So it's best if he just lets her go if she wants to marry the bugger.
But then it doesn't mean that there's no crime here.
No, exactly. Yes.
I think we should also, we're talking about, if they are still in love. One of the reasons why issues of bigamy, have not gained much
currency.
Is because people have, sentimental attachment when it comes to issues of marriage. So although, this is the law, and although people are actually violating it on a daily basis. It is not being put out there that what you're doing is criminal, and they are not being arrested for this, because most at times, even when they do know that, it's bigamy.
Most of the time, the women will say, who look after my kids? If their father should go to jail. So I'll prefer not to report him.
And also the hope
so that I can have my husband.
And also the hope that he could come back.
Exactly,
or
one
she
day.
could come back one day.
Yes.
But we need to put this out there for people to know that you can actually find yourself in the grasp of the law, and you could go to jail for this, you could be fined for this, and if you are, the one at the shorter end of the stake, you are actually entitled to report the conduct to the police. If you are the one who is unmarried and getting married to another person who is
be very aware.
Already married,
should
be careful, because that person's spouse could actually,
or anybody for that matter, report you, and then you could go to prison.
Yes,
because you are aware the person you are married to is already married. So
and you are seeking to have a monogamous marriage, or he's already married and monogamous marriage.
Yes, exactly.
And you're trying to have a customary marriage
with him.
It's important for us to keep discussing these things, to let people also know they have options in the law for these kind of things. And that, sometimes you know that he's not going to come back to you. But then again, you still have some remedies. And mind you, this is a criminal offense. And you are not supposed to cover up these crimes.
No.
You're supposed to, as a responsible citizen, call out these people and let them face, the punishments and whatever that they have to. I also like to add that when we discuss these topics, it also comes or presents the fact that nobody is above the law. Because,
certainly.
It doesn't matter what you do.
Not at all.
Not at all. There's been one incident where a pastor, was convicted for bigamy.
Okay.
Went ahead, to contract another marriage, although he was legally married to another woman. This was a pastor who had intended to see greener pastures. So during the subsistence of his marriage, went ahead to try and contract another marriage. It was, the wife found out about it, went to the venue, it tried to disrupt, but certainly did not, happy. But she went ahead to report, and he was convicted, for bigamy. So nobody is above the law when it comes to this.
That case that came up was a woman who was married to a man. She got married to two men within a space of 6 months. Because the second man was in the U.S. and he was planning to take her to the U.S. Okay. She wants to be abrochure. She wants to go to abrochure. So the parents were aware that she was already married and stood in for her to marry this man. She was already married in Somenya. district court. And then she came here and got married at AMA in Accra to the Boga.
Yes.
So when she got arrested, her husband, the first husband, found out about it. He got her arrested and got the parents arrested because they were also witnesses to a fictitious marriage.
Yes.
Certainly.
You see, so it has a lot of implications which we don't consider. It's not just the person marrying, the witnesses who are also aware of the
and those
bigamous
supporting
marriage.
and promoting the whole thing.
Exactly. Everyone is also implicated.
So, you know, one area that I keep seeing this issue of bigamy crop up, and I can't stress it enough, is divorce matters. You know, most at times people do not complete their divorce proceedings in court and get properly issued decrees and divorce certificates and go ahead to contract, you know, another marriage. You know, there have been a few times, you know, where I've seen this happen.
More than a few times, actually.
Well, more than a few times, I must confess.
I mean, the assumption is that once they are in court, it will definitely be granted.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so let's go on and maybe perform the customary one. Whilst we wait for the final one
in court.
So that when the monogamous marriage is dissolved, then they could contract another monogamous marriage. But then they forget that the current monogamous marriage is subsisting.
Yes.
So the customary marriage is a bigamous one.
Yes.
Because you already have a monogamous marriage and you've entered into...
It's avoidable one.
Yes.
Because you already have a monogamous marriage.
Yes.
No other marriage can coexist at that point.
Yes, exactly.
So it's one of the, you know, things where, or one of the areas where people are so culpable nowadays. You know, people do not allow their marriages to properly die off through the legal process before they contract another. So you realize, you know, he or she, for that matter, is, you know, in court divorcing a spouse, and during
he's moving on with his life with another one.
During the proceedings, he's moving on with his life with
actually
another
attending
person.
court with the other one. You just be grabbed from there.
Yes, a few times I've seen that, you know, where the person comes to court with the other, you know, one, and you'll be surprised to find the other person, you know, in this case, the other woman
you are
or
both
man
culpable
wearing
and
a
both
ring,
go down,
you know, yes,
for that.
And it's probably wrong, and our criminal, you know, and other offences act actually makes this a crime.
In all of this, I will always say that if you're confused, if you're unsure,
certainly
find a lawyer. Let them explain to you. Perhaps there's a situation of bigamy. Perhaps it's not really as you think. You might be mistaken. But there's nothing wrong with asking and seeking counsel. And that is the purpose of shows like this. Now you have an idea. Now you know that this is a possibility. Find counsel, find a lawyer, get informed, get empowered, and then choose what you want to do next. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great having you on Law Express today. Today you've been listening to Nana Fredio Ajman Danso and Amina Ali Isaka. My name is Noella Seydu. We'll be back same time next week. This has been Law Express. Goodbye.